Yes.
Yes. We're on the air now. We are on the air now. We're waiting for the signal. But we are on the air now. Oh, and there it is. Dun, 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 dun. And I'm going to talk to the YouTube crowd. Better late than never. Hi. All right, starting in 3, 2. This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 650, recorded on Wednesday, December 20th, 2017. Science is old. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight on This Week in Science, we are going to fill your heads with old life, savage justice, and poo. But first,
disclaimer. As we near the end of another year, we can take a moment to look back, not on the year passing, though we will get around to that next week. We take a moment to reflect on the whole of Earthling history. This once humble rock, spinning lifelessly in space without an atmosphere to call its own, has come quite a long way in the past 4.5 billion-ish years. So as we gather around the Yuli logs this season, remember that as long as there is an Earth, or as long as there are Earthlings, should we one day shuttle off this earthly coil, we are all in this together. From our humble beginnings to our futures yet unknown, the story of Earthlings is yours to be told. And nowhere else is your story told, and as vivid detail is right here on This Week in Science. Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind I can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Kiki and Blair.
and the good science to you too, Justin, Blair, and look, there's a little Sufi here also. There is. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of This Week in Science. We are back yet again to talk about all of the science that we enjoyed from the past week. There's all sorts of science out there bringing us into this wonderful holiday season. So, without any further ado, let's jingle those science bells. We have some stories about dark matter, photosynthesis, and memory. Justin, what do you have?
I have got ancient Earthlings, FDA fecal matters, and a new use for sperm.
New uses. All right. Just what we needed, maybe. And Blair, what's in the animal corner?
I have some of that savage justice you spoke about a moment ago. I have bird brain intelligence, and I have a little good old-fashioned education.
This is going to be like a Christmas present for me. Little early Twistmas present talking about bird brains and bird memory.
Kiki, I brought you bird brains on the first day of Christmas. No, that's not what today is.
What is it? It's like, I don't know, 7th day of Christmas. Blair
Yeah,
brought to me.
Is the 12th day of Christmas actually Christmas? See, I wouldn't even know.
Bird brains. Oh, yes. It's going to be magical as we move into this week. And before we jump all the way in, I want you guys to remember, I'm reminding you that you can subscribe. If you are not already subscribed, please hit whatever you do. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button wherever you're watching or listening. If you like TWIS, like us, make sure to subscribe to us. iTunes, the Google Play podcast portal, Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, all over the place. You can find us on YouTube. Hey, YouTube, and on Facebook. Hello, Facebook. I'm looking at you. You can find us just by looking for This Week in Science. You can find our website, twis.org, where you can, before the new year gets going, find information about our 2018 TWIS Blair's Animal Corner calendars.
Oh, do you mean this?
Yes, these little calendars that Blair worked very hard to put together for us once again. And a lot of people, I'm loving it and seeing images people are sending to us on social media of the coloring they're already doing. And it's just fabulous. Be sure if you do tweet an image of your coloring to Blair that you label what colors you've used.
Oh, yes.
Because remember, Blair's colorblind. So she'll just go, that's really nice.
Someone sent me a purple and yellow salamander, and they named it as such, which made it very clearly gorgeous to me. Otherwise, it was pretty, but
that's right. Name those colors, label those colors, everybody. And additionally, remember that we will be coming to San Francisco for the SF Sketch Fest event on January 18th, and our Facebook page also has an event, information there that you can find over at Facebook. Okay, all that nattering done about things that are going on, twistily related. Let's talk about the science. You know we love the dark matter here, right? Dark matter. We like dark matter. We believe in dark matter. Oh, never mind the dark matter. There's no such thing as dark matter. It's a fudge factor. No, it's not. It's real. Well, much evidence suggests that dark matter is a thing, that there is something, particles, something with mass that does not emit light in a range that is visible. So it's dark, right? It doesn't show up on our normal visible light analyses. And so it makes up about 85% of the entire universe, and we can't see it. We don't really know where it is. We know that there's evidence of it because of the clumping of matter that we can see. Now, a new bit of information coming out of NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory, the ESA's XMM Newton, and Hitomi, which is a Japanese-led X-ray telescope. They have come up with a really kind of odd and interesting interpretation of X-ray data from some distant galaxies that might help scientists determine what this dark matter stuff is. How does it act? What is it? How does it act? All these questions, right? So this story started in 2014 when astronomers, a team led by Esra Bulbul from Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics in Cambridge, Massachusetts, found a very curious spike of energy, X-ray energy, at the Chandra and XMM Newton observations in the Perseus galaxy cluster. This spike was at an energy level of 3.5 kilo-electron volts. And this is not very easily explained in terms of previous data or even predicted data for predicted astronomical objects. And so everyone said, well, it's not really predicted. We can't really explain it. Maybe it's from dark matter. Maybe this is the dark matter that we've been looking for. And so they have been trying to check it out some more. They found this 3.5 kilo-electron volt spike in 73 other galaxy clusters that they studied using the XMM Newton telescope. And the story thickens, though, when the Hitomi Japanese X-ray telescope said, I'm going to look at the Perseus. Well, the telescope didn't say it. The researchers aimed the telescope at the Perseus galaxy. And they looked for that 3.5 kilo-electron volt energy spike, and they didn't find it. And so everybody went, okay, that's weird. And according to one of the co-authors of this new study that has been released, Francesca Day from Oxford says, one might think that when Hitomi didn't see the 3.5 electron volt line, that we would have just thrown in the towel for this line of investigation. On the contrary, this is where, like in any good story, an interesting plot twist occurred. So the researchers looked at the images. Hitomi had fuzzier images than Chandra, and the data from the Perseus cluster had a mixture of X-ray signals from the hot gas that surrounds the galaxy that is in the center of the cluster, and also X-ray emission from around the supermassive black hole in the galaxy. And so Chandra, being that it's a little has better eyes, was able to separate the contribution from the two regions. And so Bubul et al. Took the X-ray signal from the hot gas. They removed point sources from their analysis, including X-rays from material near the supermassive black hole. And they reanalyzed the Chandra data from close to the black hole at the Perseus cluster that they had gotten back in 2009. And they found evidence for a deficit rather than a surplus of X-rays at 3.5 electron volts. It all falls in line around this 3.5 electron volts. And what it suggests is that something in the Perseus galaxy is actually absorbing X-rays at 3.5 electron volts, which, if you think of dark matter would be more likely to absorb than emit, right? Yeah, so now they have to explain all of this behavior, detecting absorption of X-ray light and the emission of the X-ray light at the same energy level when they look at the hot gas. So you've got the absorption by the black hole and the emission by the hot gas. And so they kind of have to figure out what's going on there. And they suggest that dark matter particles might be like atoms, where maybe they have two energy states that are separated by 3.5 electron volts, so that like atoms, when they get hit by a photon of light, or electrons, they get boosted up to a higher energy level, and then they emit light. So they've absorbed light, get boosted up to a higher energy level, emit light at that level, and then they fall back down. So atoms have this kind of dual state that happens with absorption and emission. And so maybe that happens with dark matter as well. Maybe, but we do not know. So astronomers are going to go back to the Perseus cluster. They're going to have to look at it and others like it to be able to determine whether this dip is real, to also kind of look at other hypotheses and figure out if there are any other explanations that they haven't looked at. Maybe it's a statistical error. Maybe it's an instrumental error. Maybe, maybe this is like some other things where the physicists just didn't plug something in appropriately. So the dark matter mystery moves on. But this is a very interesting finding and could lead to other interesting experiments and observations based around this 3.5 electron volt energy spike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's hard from this side of the data to not still see it as a bit of a fudge factor, just because it seems like every time they go, this data doesn't make sense, must be dark matter.
Right, this doesn't make sense. We're not really seeing dark matter.
Yeah, dark matter. For sure.
I'm sure that that's not the way they came to the suggestion that it was dark matter.
I know there's much more science
more to it
than that, but I can't help but hear it sounding a little bit like that. And it.
Oh, you didn't get my check? I know I sent it. Must be dark matter. That's all it. It's sometimes it can absorb checks when they're sent through the mail. I hear that's a big problem these days.
Yeah, dark matter can manifest as both a positive in the bank account and a negative. So who's
Who's to say there's not enough funds there? Come on.
Yeah, dark matter. It's actually Bitcoin. No.
So there is a little there could be a little bit of that, but it's also then, the other part of it is if there is this thing that's out there that's dark matter that's omnipresent in the universe, whenever we find these strange quirks, it's possible that I can't say quirks. Whenever we may be describing it bit by bit, like you might describe an elephant in a dark room by 5 different people who are on different ends of it. One who's got the tail says, it's skinny, kind of like a snake. Somebody else has got the trunk. It's like, no, it's like a really big snake. And then somebody else has got a leg and it's like, no, it's more tree-like than, and they can't seem to agree, even though they're all describing different aspects of the same thing.
Maybe, eventually though, all of them maybe start talking to each other and realize they're all talking about the same thing. That's what it just takes more time.
So you heard it here.
That's right.
Dark matter is like elephants. Yeah.
Dark matter is like elephants. That's right. It is true. 'Tis true. Moving forward from dark matter, NASA announced today how it's going to spend some money. There was under the New Frontiers program, there were proposals submitted to, it's a contest basically, to determine NASA's next missions within the solar system. And in the New Frontiers program, which puts a maximum of $850 million on a project, I believe, a cost cap of around $850 million. Other missions that have been very successful coming out of this New Frontiers program are the New Horizons mission to Pluto and a Kuiper Belt object, and also the Juno mission to Jupiter, which is active at the moment, sending back beautiful images of Jupiter, and the OSIRIS-REx craft, which is also going to be rendezvousing with asteroid Bennu for a sample return mission. So the announcement today, drum roll. Well, it's not really a drum roll because you've probably already heard it already, but I'll tell you now. The NASA's Science Mission Directorate has said these are tantalizing investigations that seek to answer some of the biggest questions in our solar system today. So next one is the CAESAR mission, Comet Astrobiology Exploration Sample Return. Another sample return mission. The CAESAR mission is going to head over to 67P Churyumov-Gerasimenko, where the ESA's Rosetta craft bounced and didn't send back all the data that it had planned to send back, but we landed the Rosetta craft on Churyumov-Gerasimenko, and now NASA says we're going to go there, get a sample, and come back. So 67P, another target. Again, the other finalist is the Dragonfly mission.
Ooh,
and this one actually, the CAESAR mission, I'm like, okay. The Dragonfly mission, I am excited about. This is a drone-like rotorcraft, a dual quadcopter lander that is going to Saturn's moon, Titan, which is an ocean world, frozen ocean under the surface. This is going to be led by Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory in Maryland. And the Dragonfly mission will be able to land and then fly to multiple locations on the surface of Titan, some hundreds of miles apart, to be able to sample materials, determine surface composition, to look into Titan's unique organic chemistry, and the possibility for habitability of microbial life, monitor atmospheric and surface conditions, image landforms to investigate geological processes, and perform seismic studies. So, this one is going to be exciting. But, this now just means they are just beginning. They will get the funds to be able to possibly move forward to be launched at some point in the future. But we all know that many of these missions take decades, if not longer, from conceptualization to launch and actualization. So let's put those in our sights for the future, everyone. We will leave the planet and head out into the outer solar system again in a few years. It'll happen someday, some way. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to channel my inner Barbara. Barb.
Barb.
And then my last story to open up the show as we go on and on and on. This is kind of going to lead into Justin's story. Justin's got an old story. So do I. So published in the journal Geology, researchers from Canada, from McGill University, have published on finding the world's oldest algae fossils. Just take a guess how old the world's oldest algae fossils are. Algae, right? Blue green algae, photosynthetic organism.
I would guess, and this is just a guess, that would be 1.047 billion years.
How many? Million or
1.047 billion?
Million?
Yes.
Billion, he said.
Billion years.
I'm gonna go with 4 billion.
Well, Justin is the more accurate right there. Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
I'm good at this game.
You are getting great at these games based on probably looked at this story earlier today. Based on this citing researchers, they found algae fossils. They're 1 billion years old. From 1.8 to 0.8 billion years ago, archaea, bacteria, and other minorly complex organisms that have gone extinct, they used to inhabit the planet's oceans. And yeah, algae started about 1 billion years ago. But based on their finding of one particular fossilized algae called Bangiomorpha pubescens, these were first discovered in rocks in Arctic Canada in 1990. They were then able to use molecular clocks to guess at what point that algae would have engulfed another microorganism that allowed it to be photosynthetic. And they push it back. Photosynthesis gets pushed back to 1.25 billion years ago, long before there were ever plants on the land, long before there was even oxygen in the atmosphere. Photosynthesis was running rampant, growing in the oceans, building up the oxygen on our planet for us and managing in a very warm climate at the time. Yeah, it's also very interesting, this time period from 1.8 to 0.8 billion years ago. It was called the Boring Billion because there wasn't a lot going on. It was all this kind of unicellular, slightly complex ocean life, and it wasn't like big structural evolutionary changes going on. And so,
are you saying that algae isn't interesting, Kiki?
I think it's very interesting. I just think it's funny that geologists, they got really excited about the Cambrian explosion, stuff like that, proliferation of life and different forms of life. And, when you have mass extinctions, that's a big deal. There was this time period, it was like 1 billion years, where just these these creatures floated around making oxygen. And that, it might have been boring, but it was very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that sweet oxygen had to come from somewhere.
Sweet oxygen, yeah. So the researchers say that they expect and hope that other scientists will plug this age for Bangiomorpha pubescens into their own molecular clocks to calculate the timing of important evolutionary events and test their results. If other scientists envision a better way to calculate when the chloroplast, the photosynthetic microbe that was engulfed, when it emerged, The scientific community will eventually decide which estimate seems most reasonable and find new ways to test it. Ah, yes, science. It progresses through new experiments and new technology and new methodologies. And so while we say 1.25 billion years ago, it could be give or take. Justin, what you got?
What do I have indeed? This is researchers at UCLA and University of Wisconsin-Madison have confirmed the oldest fossils ever found, and in doing so, the earliest evidence of life on Earth. Microscopic fossils discovered in a 3.5 billion year old piece of rock in Western Australia. A study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, led by J. William Schopf, professor of paleobiology at UCLA, and John W. Valley, professor of geoscience, University of Wisconsin-Madison. Microfossils were first described in the journal Science, 1993, by Schopf and his team, which identified them based largely on the fossil's unique cylindrical and filamentous shapes. And these are very, very, very tiny fossils, too, so he had to look very closely. Schopf published further supporting evidence of their biological identities in 2002. This time, the research relied on new technology and scientific expertise developed by researchers at UW-Madison, Wisconsin Sims Laboratory. So there had been earlier interpretations of Schopf's work that had been disputed. Critics argued that they could be just odd minerals that only appeared similar to biological specimens. So this new testing was sort of necessary to get rid of the critics. The study describes 11 microbial specimens from 5 separate taxa, including their morphologies to chemical signatures that are characteristic of life. So not only did they find a microbe, they found 11 within these microfossils. According to Valley, says these new findings put past doubts to rest. The microfossils are indeed biological. I think it's settled, he says, or I think it's settled. It's hard to read into when you're just saying text. Yeah, I think it's settled. I'm going to say it more confident. I think it's settled, he says. Using a secondary ion mass spectrometer, one of just a handful of such instruments in the world, Valley and his team were able to separate the carbon composing each fossil into its constituent isotopes and measure their ratios. Isotopes are different versions of the same chemical element that vary in their masses. Different organic substances, whether in rock, microbial, animal, contain characteristic ratios of their stable carbon isotopes. So looking at this, they said, aha, yes, it's life. Through some sort of magic process of science, they came to these conclusions.
Magic.
I think that's how they date it, though, is with the isotopes. So,
yeah, differences in carbon isotope ratios correlate with their shapes. If they're not biological, there is no reason for such a correlation. Their C13 to C12 ratios are characteristic of biology and metabolic function. Based on this information, researchers were also able to assign identities and likely physiological behaviors to the fossils locked inside the rock. Results show that these are primitive, but a diverse primitive group of organisms. The team identified a complex group of microbes, phototropic bacteria that would have relied on the sun to produce energy, archaea that produce methane, and gamma proteobacteria that consumed the methane. So they got a nice little biological circle there. An important constituent, they say, methane of early Earth atmosphere before the oxygen that wouldn't show up for billions of years, as we now know.
So you said life is at least 3.5 billion years old now,
and 11 forms of it, in these microfossils.
So much closer to my previous guess of 4 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, it took Valley's team nearly 10 years to develop the processes to accurately analyze the microfossils. In preparation for analysis, the team needed to painstakingly grind the original samples down as slowly as possible to expose the delicate fossils themselves, all suspended at different levels within the rock, encased in a hard layer of quartz. And they had to do this without destroying the fossils. So each microfossil is only about 10 micrometers wide. So the fossil grinding took place sometimes 1 micrometer at a time. For those not familiar with the micrometer system, 1 micrometer is approximately the same as 1/1000th of a meter. So that's very small. Valley and Chop are part of the Wisconsin Astrobiology Research Consortium, funded by the NASA Astrobiology Institute. So this organization exists to study and understand the origins, the future, and nature of life on not just this planet, but throughout the universe. And Chope says studies like this indicate life could be common throughout the universe, but importantly, here on Earth, because the several different types of microbes were shown to be already present by 3.5 billion years. It tells us life had to begin substantially earlier.
Right, which if they were that substantial, it had to be billions of years before that.
Yeah. So they're not saying how much earlier. They don't have they're not doing the biological clock on this one, trying to say how they got evolved backwards. But earlier studies by Valley and his team back in 2001 did show liquid water oceans existed as early as 4.3 billion years ago, which was 800 million years before the fossils of this study. So, and that would be just 250 million years after we have our estimation for the formation of the Earth, which means that the Earth might be older than we think, or that life just doesn't take long to find a way.
Or it came from somewhere else.
Like aliens?
Yeah, but in a certain way, it kind of wouldn't matter because we're all in space together anyway, man.
Yeah, man.
We're all aliens.
I'm just saying that might be a way.
Big. Yeah. Space is big. Life
is old. You may think it's a long way to the corner store, but that's just peanuts to space.
Yeah, this kind of a study is so fascinating to me because it's we're looking at things at ever smaller scales, and there's always that question of, even though something looks like a fossil for microbial life, is it really? And so this really gets at it with the chemical signatures. So there are organic, the organic metabolites, the signatures of life having been there and been metabolizing and changing its environment. And so these kinds of tests are actually going to be really, really useful for us looking at other planets even, or moons of planets like Titan, when they're looking for the chemical signature of habitability, or even on Mars. Can we look for signatures like this?
And also what's kind of difficult, even looking at our own planet, here we found your algae fossils came from an Arctic region of Canada. And these bacteria fossils are happen to be an exposed bit of rock in Western Australia that hasn't undergone the tectonic or erosive processes, so that it's managed to stay preserved kind of miraculously on the surface of the planet, accessible and findable and viewable. Not very many areas on the planet have that kind of an ancient history that you could even pull from.
The other one we reported in September or October, I think it was September or October, on some other Canadian rocks. Maybe they're similar in location to the rocks where the algae were located, but there were other rocks. I remember it was, I think they determined the chemical traces of the ancient life to be around 3.95 or 4 billion years old. So, our ability to find these things further and further back is improving. It's good that scientists are skeptical and that the burden of proof is on showing the extraordinary on really showing the evidence to support the hypothesis that this is really old life versus not just a weird chemical aberrance, Yeah, but yeah. Life is old, man. Gotta get it a cane.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. In the grand scheme of things, life might just be getting started.
Huh, yeah. How do we know?
How do we know? How do we know? Ours is but
Only
a brief
looking backwards.
sliver on the fingernail.
Of the sands of time. I don't know.
That's right. I don't know.
I'm only old looking backwards. I'm brand new going forwards.
You know what's new? This is This Week in Science, and it's time for
Get out your jazz hands
Blair's Animal Corner.
with Blair.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. Wanna hear about animals? She's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels.
What you got, Blair?
I have some sweet justice. Let me ask you a question. If you see someone doing something wrong, do you demand that justice be served?
I call Wonder Woman.
That's right. You want to see her show up with her lasso of truth. You want to see that miscreant carted off to jail. Because there is right and there is wrong. And if we have to follow what is right and what is wrong, then they better get their justice served. They better get their just desserts because they shouldn't be allowed to follow rules.
Yep. I mean, there's kind of gray areas too.
Well, isn't justice a meaningless word anyway? I mean, because everybody going to court wants justice, but I mean, the judge decides one of them gets it and one doesn't, but they both believe that that's what they're there for.
Well, an international team of researchers recently published a study in the journal Nature Human Behavior, about human children, chimpanzees, and crime and punishment. So one of these studies was done with chimpanzees in a zoo. The other one was done with children from 4 to 6 years old in a laboratory. And they wanted to see what was similar and what was different about their expectation of justice. So first, the chimpanzees. They were brought alone into a room. They interacted with a human researcher. In some scenarios, the human offered the chimp some food. In other scenarios, the human showed them the food but didn't share it. And after each scenario, another human entered the scene carrying a stick, which they used to pretend to hit the first human. And the chimp watched. Then both actors moved to another room. The chimp could only continue to watch what was happening if they worked very hard. They put a lot of physical work into pulling back a heavy door. What they found was that the chimps really, really, really wanted to see that bad human, the one who withheld the snacks. They really wanted to see them get hit more.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But they had no interest to even try to open the door to watch the good human, the one who shared, get hit.
Huh.
So now,
Wait a second.
children,
Wait a second.
hold on, let me finish. So now to the children. 72 children between the ages of 2 and 6 years old watched a puppet show. That puppet offered the child a toy that the child had previously proven to show a preference for, call it a favorite or a preferred toy. In some scenarios, the puppet handed the toy straight to the child. In others, just like with the chimps, they showed them the toy and then kept it. Then another puppet entered the scene and started hitting the first puppet. Then the action moved behind a screen. Here's where it gets interesting. If the child wanted to continue watching what was happening with the puppets, they had to give up stickers. children love stickers.
They really do. It
They're
is
rewarding these stickers.
illogical.
That was their payment. And they found that the older children, about 4 to 6-year-olds, were willing to give up stickers to watch the bad puppet, the one who withheld the toy, to watch that puppet get more abuse. But they did not give up stickers to watch the good puppets get it. Children younger than that, however, were willing to give up stickers in either scenario. So either
They just don't care about stickers.
don't care as much about stickers, or they're just interested in watching. I mean, think about it. Little kids are like sponges, so maybe they're just thinking that those puppets are doing something. What are they doing? You know, it could just.
I'll give you stickers. Do you want the stickers? I'll give you stickers. What are they doing?
But at least with the older children and with the chimps, we're seeing a very common trait here, that they are interested in seeing this, what we are projecting as a punishment or justice scenario, enough to exert work or to give up something else they want. So go ahead.
I'm chomping at the bit here because even from the chimps, the first one, I came to a different conclusion.
Okay, let's hear it.
I came to the conclusion that chimps and older children are just greedy, selfish, and so they got the treat or the toy from the one that started getting hit, and then they have no interest. I already got the treat. What do I care?
Mm-hmm.
And then the one that didn't give it to him is now getting hit. Now they're thinking, maybe he's going to drop it. I might have a chance of grabbing it.
Interesting. I mean, we can't rule that out. We don't know what's going on in their brains. So I would agree with you. A lot of this study appears to be some projection of the thought processes going on in the chimps and the human child's heads, but there is definitely a correlation here between wanting to see a negative interaction after they themselves had a negative interaction with someone.
Well, we know that tit for tat is very important social behavior. That this is a behavior that reinforces social norms. Over time that somebody in your social circle is not going to give you things, and so either they need to not be in your social circle anymore because they don't share, or they have to have a punishment. It would be nice to see them be punished because they're not interacting in the right way. So there's some kind of balancing there.
Doesn't it also show a wholehearted lack of concern for what's happening to somebody who just gave you something, who just gave you a gift, and you don't even care to see what eventually happens to them while they're getting beat? I'm sure it'll be fine. I got a treat. What do I care?
Yeah,
I don't know. There's a dark side to that. You can read it. Just focus on that side of it and come up with a completely different conclusion from this.
So the question is whether the
right.
interest is a negative or a positive, right? Are they interested in looking at them to see what's going on because there's concern? Or are they looking at them to see what's going on because they want to watch this other individual get hurt, right? And then there's this further question of the difference between punishment and reinforcement. A lot of the tit for tat type of stuff that we've talked about on the show and that we've seen in scientific journals before is reinforcement based. I will help you if you help me. This is one of the first studies. I haven't seen a lot of studies based on a punishment idea, which is why this caught my eye, because it's something I haven't seen a lot of research on in the past.
But you would expect with the reinforcement model that the positive interaction where you're given food or given a toy, that would make you more concerned for the individual who you'd had that positive interaction with. And so Justin's point is a really good one. What else is going on here?
Don't act too surprised.
How do you measure the difference between concern and interest based on wanting to see justice?
Right. And actually with conversations with my 6-year-old, and at the age of the kids who were in this study, we've had some big conversations over the last year or so in kindergarten and first grade about things happening that were not fair, where he didn't get an ice cream and everybody else got one, and he was angry about it. I mean, so angry that he wanted other people to be punished.
Mhm.
He did because
There
he
you go.
didn't get the ice cream that everyone else got. And so his verbalization of his emotions, he's actually, there's a lot going on there that I actually think that, yeah, maybe those 6-year-olds are pretty happy to give up stickers to see some punishment meted out to these mean individuals who didn't do something that, they offered a toy and then didn't give it to them.
Yeah, so maybe if we can find a better way to parse out
What's happening there?
Yeah, what's happening there in their brain? What is the motivation behind watching, right? Because I would argue it's likely that you're right, Kiki, that a desire for fairness and for proper punishment may come before cooperation
Yeah.
and selflessness. And because kind of
that just
Justin's
says
point,
things about humanity and chimpanzeeity.
yeah, because as a toddler or as a chimp, your entire world is yourself. So you might not be worried about that person over there getting hurt because they don't have anything to do with you, but you might want to make sure that someone who did you wrong was not going to do it again.
Yep.
I think they're hoping that the puppet or the person getting hit that still has a treat is just going to drop it. I'm sticking to that one.
Well,
there's still a reward to be gained on that scenario.
Justin, in the chimp scenario, the human ate it, so there was no dropping it.
Oh, okay. Well, that does change it a little bit.
So they just wanted to see the human that cheated them out of their snack
spit it up.
I don't know.
Chimp, that's not a big deal. Chimps do that all the time.
It depends on what the snack was. Because if the snack was a graham cracker or something like that, not going to work out so well. Moving on, my next story is about bird brains, or rather, not the brain themselves, but what the brain does. And we've talked a little bit on the show about African gray parrots. Most people who are into animals even a little bit are aware that they are super smart. There have been African gray parrots. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name. There was one that learned Alex to identify different items and knew the names for those items. They have an amazing vocabulary. Well, something else that they have that our younger ones don't have in terms of humans is a good idea of conservation of mass and understanding of volume.
Wow.
Yes. So there's this classic Piagetian test, which is all about understanding volume and how the same volume of something can take different shapes, but it never changes in amount. And the way that works usually with a child, you show two identical glasses of something, usually juice or something like that they would want. Then you ask them which one they want. And most children will recognize same glass, same amount, they're the same. Then they pour that juice from the same two glasses into different containers. One is tall and thin, one is short and squat. And then again, they ask the child to choose. And until about age 6, again, lots of talking about 6-year-olds tonight. Until about age 6, they choose the taller container, even though they just saw it come from a glass that held the same amount, because since it's tall and thin, it appears to them, it's a bit of an optical illusion for them, it appears to take more space, so they think it has more juice now. Well, in a recent study from Harvard...
People still get messed up on this with, like, as adults, with ice and glasses of water and explanations of glaciers melting.
Absolutely, yes.
Right.
And my roommate, whenever she's cooking, she always says, I'm terrible at conservation of mass. She'll cook up a big bowl of something, and then she'll try to pour it into a Tupperware, and it won't ever fit.
Yep.
And so it's something that we struggle with, but in most humans after age 6 would be able to recognize if you started with 2 cups of juice, it wasn't changing phases at all. You're just putting it in different containers that in theory is not going to change in amount. Right. So this new study from Harvard Psychology Department looking at Griffin an African gray parrot, a very smart African gray parrot. He was given the same test. He was shown 2 cups with different amounts of juice, this time different amounts, not the same amount. They were then poured into cups. One had a false bottom so that it was designed so that the 2 amounts then looked equal. But he was able to recognize which cup held more based on which one started out as more. This is even when they tried to shade or hide the process a little bit. As long as they didn't mix up the cups, he was able to figure it out. And so this is showing us that these birds actually have a pretty good idea of conservation of mass and how volume works, which makes sense because in the wild, everything doesn't come in a graduated cylinder.
Right.
Things come in different shapes and sizes, and they need to be able to judge what is more, what is less, what is the same. And the example that they give here, one of the main researchers says, the idea here is that in their environment, birds would need to know that changes in appearance have no effect on quantity. For example, a squished piece of fruit has the same amount of nutritional value as an unsquished piece of fruit. But, now I'm editorializing, the squished one might be much easier to get, might be much sweeter, might have other things about it that make it better, right? And so by recognizing that it's the same amount of fruit, it's the same calories, they might be better off to be able to recognize that volume is conserved. So,
Nice.
yeah.
So these bird brains, smarter than a 6-year-old.
Smarter than a 6-year-old. Yes.
It's going to be the next hit television show. Is your bird smarter than a 6-year-old?
Well, and we know that, for example, crows have a way better idea of object permanence than a lot of human toddlers do.
Yeah.
So it's just added to the list of things that birds have figured out that small humans haven't yet.
I think, I mean, it's an interesting comparison with the parrots, especially because they have long lives and they also have a longer adolescence. I mean, comparatively, they stay with their parents for a couple of years. And humans, toddlers, we have a very long youth and developmental period comparatively. And so we
am I right?
yeah, but we compare. It's so interesting that we try and make these comparisons between different species that have these completely different developmental periods. And so the question of, is this bird that's an adult and having to potentially make survival decisions on its own without any input from a mentor, is that bird as smart as a 2-year-old child that is still being completely doted over and never has to make a decision of its own and still probably eats sand out of a sandbox?
That's such a good point too, because I think that we keep comparing animals to toddler humans because there is this expectation that fundamentally there's no way animals can be as smart as adult humans. So we have to draw comparisons to half-baked humans that are not ready to flourish and go out on their own.
Yeah.
And so that, you're right, it might fundamentally be an antiquated question and an antiquated equivalency.
I think it is in terms of the equivalency aspect for sure. It's, we keep coming back to this idea of how smart animals really are and intelligence being adapted to the environment in which an animal lives for the lifestyle that the animal needs. And so these are survival questions. These are questions that, that compare, it's apples and oranges.
You just gave me a huge aha moment. Almost as big as the one where I, for the very first time, asked myself, wait, what even is a species? It's like, why are we comparing grown, functioning adult animals to babies? Because there's an assumption that they're stupid or they're not developmentally ready to be compared to adult humans. But I bet, like we were talking about, there are adult humans out there that probably aren't as good at judging volumes as this African gray parrot is. So maybe that
Probably.
is our new question.
Right.
Is what percentile of human adults are they equivalent to?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I kind of get it. I mean, we only know ourselves. And so this is like trying to put other animals into the human perception, our box of how things work, but it doesn't fit correctly. It's kludgy, and it doesn't make me happy most of the time. But this was a good test because it does show that, I mean, we can even get rid of this, hey, 2-year-olds can't do this. Get rid of that entirely because
That's
the
still
entire
interesting.
story is, it's
Yeah.
not interesting, right? The entire story is these adult African gray parrots have this volume and mass conservation ability that we didn't know they had.
Absolutely.
There's the story.
Yes. I love it.
To be fair, yeah, and to be fair too, these are parrots that were raised by humans,
Right.
right?
They're
If
probably
you had
dumber than
humans
the
being
average
raised by
parrot.
parrots, you would probably find the result to be completely different. Those babies raised by parrots would probably be pretty good at this task.
We will see. All right, everybody, let's go cross foster some species and ideas over the break. This is This Week in Science. It is time for us to take a short break because Justin, I think, needs to go outside, maybe. I don't know. He needs to go for a walk. I have some things to say. Stay tuned for the second half. I've got a memory for you. And Justin's going to start talking about poo.
Very soon.
Very soon.
Stay tuned for that.
Can't explain the things you heard with more than intuition. The line of reason shows the way to go. No conclusion. The methods of hypothesis and patience are the only things I need.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for watching or for listening to This Week in Science. We are glad you're with us right now. And I just want to let you know, remind you that our TWIS Blair's Animal Corner 2018 calendars are available now. They are black and white calendars. It wasn't a misprint. These calendars are for you to fill in with color. That's right. Blair put some wonderful pen and ink designs together, black and white, for you to be able to color. You could make yourself a special glitter rainbow pangolin if you wanted to. Yeah, or whatever that prawn is. I don't know what Blair's.
How dare you? This is a mantis shrimp.
Mantis shrimp, right? Mantis shrimp. There's a mantis shrimp.
Come on.
It'll be a wonderful calendar for you and your family to enjoy all year long as you look forward to TWIS every Wednesday, and also look at the amazing science holidays that there are, techie, geeky, wonderful holidays throughout the year that you can celebrate or observe in the method of your choice. Get yourself a calendar. Go to twis.org right now and click on the calendar link and get your calendar. Supplies are limited. Also, we'll be in San Francisco for SF Sketch Fest on January 18th, and we're very much looking forward to that. And we hope to see you all there. Come join us. Get yourself tickets. You must buy tickets. They are available through the Cal Academy of Sciences Nightlife. You have to choose the correct date, January 18th, when you buy your ticket. Just go to our Facebook page, This Week in Science, on Facebook for the event, and that will lead you to the tickets so that you don't have to go searching for it yourself. But anyway, SF Sketch Fest, get your tickets. Come see us live. Blair will sign your calendar. It's true. Maybe she'll bring a glitter pen to do it. I don't know what my fascination is with glitter. We know it's made of plastic and is destroying the universe, but I really, really like it. Okay. That done. Now I just need to remind everyone that your support is what keeps TWIS going. So, as much as we would love to see you in San Francisco, see you here every week, we love that. We love that. We love that you're listening to us right now. But we really do need your support to keep going. Otherwise, I don't know, maybe I'll have to find some advertisers. I don't want to do that, but I might do that. But your support keeps us ad free. And if you head over to our website, twist.org, head over to twist.org. We have links there where you can find various ways to support us. One way is through our merchandise. If you head to our Zazzle store, click on the Zazzle store link in the header bar. That will take you to the Zazzle store, zazzle.com/thisweekinscience, where there are wonderful items with art from previous Blair's Animal Corner calendars, the TWIS logo also, lots of wonderful things. There's wrapping paper, there are baby onesies, there are mugs, travel mugs, stamps, hats, so many things with twists on it. Get one for yourself, get something for someone you love. The proceeds go to support TWIS. If you're not into things, which I totally get, clutter can be overwhelming, you can help us out simply by donating to TWIS. On our website, we have donate buttons. You can click on the yellow donate button to make a one-time donation to TWIS. That's through PayPal. If you want to do an ongoing PayPal donation, a recurring payment week after week, just click on the most recent episode and scroll to the bottom of the page. There are some pink buttons. One says one-time contribution. One is $10 a month recurring, $5 a month recurring, or $2 a month recurring. These are through PayPal, and they go automatically to our PayPal account, and it's just easy peasy. You set it up through those pink buttons at the bottom of every episode page at twist.org. Now, if you are interested in supporting us on Patreon, which is a similar kind of thing where you can support us in an ongoing fashion, this I have changed recently to be a monthly recurring payment. So once a month, you will be charged for the level that you choose, at which you choose to support us. So from $1 a month all the way on up, we've got many levels of support, all the way up to $1,000 or more per month. We would love to get your support on a month-by-month basis. And if you have been supporting us on Patreon and have not logged in to change your donation amount, your support level, since I changed everything to monthly, please log into Patreon and update your support tier. If you were at $1 an episode previously, now you're just sitting at $1 a month. It would be great if you would update that to either $3.14 a month or even $5 a month. That would be amazingly helpful. We would love to get back up to where we were before this change came around. We'd love to hit our previous level of monthly support, if that is possible. Please keep us going, you guys. Keep TWIS supported and active so that we can pay all the bills and, pay ourselves a little something for the time and effort that we do put into this show every week. Now, if you're not interested in all the money talk, I know there are a lot of you out there who just listen to TWIS and you love us. You're with us every week. Hi. Share us with somebody. That would be one of the best things you could do. What a Christmas present. Share TWIS with someone you love for Twistmas. That would be good. TWIS for Twistmas. That's the way. That's the reasoning. Everyone, thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. We really could not do this without you.
And we're back with more This Week in Science.
Yes, we are. And it is time now for that wonderful segment of our show where we talk about what science has done for us lately. Oh my goodness. This weekend, what has science done for me lately? This week's note comes from Steve Zweidinger. I'm alive because of science. I was born premature. In years past, I probably would not have made it. Only bad part is I can't truthfully say I was born ready. Steve, I'm glad that you have a little joke about it, but yeah, medical science saves so many lives every year. Babies' lives, allows people to join the world and have a chance that maybe they would not have had at one point in time. Thank you for being with us. And thanks, science, you're able to be here with us. Thank you. Everyone, we need you to write in. Tell us your stories. Tell us your comments. What has science done for you lately? How has it helped you? Send us a short poem, a haiku, or send us a little bit longer paragraph or something. We want to know what science does for you every day. Leave us a message on our Facebook page. That is facebook.com/thisweekinscience. Remember, we're going to fill this segment of the show with something from you every single week. And we can keep doing this. Don't let this energy slow down. No. We're going to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Justin.
Yes.
Oh, what do you have for us now?
Fecal matter transplants are apparently becoming a popular thing. And there was a policy forum that was talking about it and considering what the appropriate regulatory framework for such enthusiastic behavior might be. They outlined a few key areas for improvement, being that there really isn't much. They say the transfer of stool from one healthy donor to a recipient for recurrent Clostridium difficile infection is considered to be standard of care therapy. Microbial transfers, they say, are increasingly being considered as treatment for other conditions as well. And they're gaining such popularity that some people are self-administering fecal matter transplants, as we had a guest on the show who did just that.
Yep. Oh, Josiah, look what you've started.
Yeah. So when people are doing a kind of DIY FMTing, fecal matter transplanting, they are doing so with unscreened stool samples.
Thanks.
So the FDA has a stance on this. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, whose one of their main jobs is to prevent fecal matter from being ingested by people, right? Now has to come up with a guidance that makes it okay. And they did publish some documents that would require stool banks to submit an investigational new drug application to obtain and distribute stool samples to physicians, which is, of course, creating a lot of barriers, costs, and questions associated with exactly how you do that, and then still allow people who have a medical need for a fecal matter transplant. The authors of this policy forum propose a different approach where stool banks are required to report to a registry, allowing for ongoing capture of patient outcome data on safety and effectiveness. So basically, it happens, and then we'll find out what happens after that. But they're saying we should not be required to have this new drug application, especially since, I guess, stool has been around long enough that we can have kind of a good idea of the substance itself that we're working with, even though we may not know all of the outcomes directly from a fecal matter transplant. They also recommend that doctors and laboratories retain the ability to distribute for the Clostridium difficile treatment at their discretion, but not for the unproven therapies.
Right.
Meanwhile,
kind of not really any of the off-label stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Not off-label. However, meanwhile, Dr. Justin's Not a Real Doctor Wonder Cure for All That Ails Ya probiotic poo pills remain available for purchase while supplies last, though actually taking them is not recommended or advised, even if done so as directed.
Yeah, I think that this whole thing, I mean, it's good that there's a policy for them. It's great that they're trying to standardize fecal transplants. I mean, there's a huge potential here for unknown or undetected pathogenic bacteria to be passed from one individual to another and cause significant disease and trauma. And if it's done in an unregulated way, I mean, if people are just getting poop from their friends, feces from friends. Oh dear. And if they are, sourcing potentially healthy fecal matter on their own, this is independent. This is DIY. It's outside the medical institution. But when you're talking about doctors in the medical setting giving treatments, the clinics should be registered. There should be some amount of regulation over the treatments to know that there is that standard of care that is going to be helping people and that healthy fecal matter is going to be transplanted and not potentially pathogenic matter.
3 problems I have with this.
Yeah.
One is we really are just starting to learn about the microbiome, right? So we really don't know why things might work, why they might be. We don't know what we're introducing in full in any fecal matter transplant. We really don't completely understand all of the conditions and ramifications of these things. The other part is also then if we're talking about limiting people from swapping microbes between each other, where does that stop? That's a slippery slope between you need a permit to kiss somebody or engage in another particular types of activities that could swap microbes back and forth. So on the human to human level, I don't think you can really legislate that you can't DIY this thing, right? That's a really tricky one.
Well,
yeah, I agree with that.
Here, though, is that by the FDA starting to look at this, it will get used more and more in the medical field. And that's how we will learn how to do it right, is through trials and adjustments based on that. So I think that ultimately this will help accelerate what we know and how we know how to use it.
I think so. I do worry, though, similar to, homeopathic treatments that have ended up endangering the lives of babies that are sold at grocery stores on health food aisles. You don't want, I'm sorry, Justin, but I don't necessarily want Dr. Mr. Justin's poop pills on the health food aisle at Safeway, so that anybody can just pick up their, over-the-counter fecal transplant poo pills, from the grocery store or even from little holistic health food shops.
That's just going to create a black market effect.
Yeah.
Where under the table instead of over the counter is taking place, and then who knows what, right? So yeah, there's a whole lot of questions.
Unless there's poop pills that you can get from your doctor that is covered by your insurance, then there's less need for a black market, isn't there?
Yeah, or you're a
bio
student and you're, working this out in your lab with your lab partner.
Yeah. Be part of a clinical trial.
I guess part of the thing that I'm also thinking, though, the third thing was just, how do you create legislation on what is the approved guidelines for something that can be so variable? between individuals, like what screening. I mean, it's not like, okay, first thing you do, you sterilize it completely. Well, then that's exactly, then there's no point, right?
Yeah.
How do you know what to screen in and out? Because we don't fully understand the microbiome, so we don't know what should be screened in or screened out. There's a whole, I mean, outside of doing, I don't even want to say
I think there's some stuff you can do very easily, like determine safe levels of E. coli in poo pills and go, okay, thrown out. This batch is thrown out. Unacceptable. That is going to save lives.
And they've already gone that far. They already know to test, in the trials and in the actual therapeutic treatment that's ongoing currently for like the Clostridium difficile infections. They are testing, and they're not sterilizing it 100% like you're saying, but they're testing and making sure that there are not known pathogens that are being passed along. But it takes the ability to test for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the oversight.
And the oversight, yeah.
And then then it comes into like, okay, what's the shelf life?
These are important questions.
But I think this is what we're getting at is like the market aspect of it, where this is people selling the treatment and the therapy. That's a different story altogether than, hey, I've got a gut problem. You're totally fine. Can I, where you're talking. Yeah. Can I have, where you're talking to your friend, and instead of, like you mentioned, Justin, the kissing and the swapping spit or, that kind of thing, in this case, you're swapping other biological material. That's not regulated. That's not a market. That is just you and another person. And so they are different areas of legislation and regulation entirely.
Right. So I think what it'll end up coming down to will be certain individuals who themselves are screened on a regular basis, who actually make a profession out of being a professional donor, who go through, have a set diet, which they'll advertise, on their website. This is the kind of food that I eat. This is my recent doctor update. This is my recent pathogen screening. And you'll actually buy into some individual person, because otherwise the anonymousness of it, nobody's really going to want an anonymous fecal matter transplant. I think you really do want to get to know, as much as you care whether or not the chicken was free ranged or whether the cow got hormones, you're going to want to know where this fecal matter transplant came from.
Yeah, you're talking about trusting the source. And so if it's from an individual and you're getting it from an individual, you want to trust the source. The other question, though, is if it's a fecal matter repository where, at a hospital or a lab or a clinic where they take quantities of material to process it and turn it into a therapeutic material, then you trust the clinic, you trust the doctor, you trust the hospital. You have to.
And my money's on that.
Well, but
absolutely, because you're going to want to culture things from a sample. You're not going to want to take samples, because
I don't know.
There's no way to 100% regulate what a person has been eating or anything. There's going to be too much background work on synthesizing something in between them giving a sample and you getting it, as opposed to them taking samples, pulling out the bacterial strains they want, culturing those.
That's the problem.
You a probiotic.
They don't know what the culture. They don't know what they want. It's the entire environment that they're adding. So they can't just go in there and specifically say, we know what it is exactly.
I think that's
the whole biome and diversity of it.
That's my prediction.
And unlike a blood drive or a blood bank, where you're being administered this blood, typically in an emergency situation where you're not necessarily caring as much. There's been screening and it's easier to do that screening. But in this situation where you might have time, months, weeks, years to consider your therapy, you have that time to drill down and say, I want to know the source. I have time. I may even be able to choose my source, take them to the hospital with me. Here's my here's my donor, like you would do with maybe if you had a relative who could give you a kidney or something, and say, hey, go ahead and put them through the basic screening, then back off, Jack, or assist in the processing to put things in a nice, neat pill for us, but not necessarily have a bank. I think that bank would be, well, nobody would ever rob it.
I do hope that we can, forestall the necessity of this, with just a better modern diet. Maybe people could just eat more fiber.
But that's not fair, right? We know that's not how that works. It's not all from the food. In fact, sometimes the food that you eat is irrelevant, and the outcomes are irrelevant to what your microbiome is, and your microbiome makeup is what makes some foods challenging and some foods not. So yeah. How do you regulate that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I hope to enjoy many more fecal conversations on this issue. Oh man, speaking of other things related to survival, there are certain words, maybe certain things that maybe our brains evolved over or adapted over millions of years of evolution to recall better. Some things, right, are going to help us survive and other things aren't. And so maybe those things that are going to help us survive, we want to remember those. We want to pay attention to them. We're going to remember them. And so some researchers from Binghamton University have just published a study on asking people to recall various words. So they had a previous experiment, which they replicated, where subjects had to rate the relevance of different words in relation to a survival scenario on the ancient grasslands of Africa. So probably something like, a saber-toothed tiger is stalking you and going to be trying to kill you. Which of these things would be relevant? A rock, an apple, ball, stick. They had to rate them. Then later, after going through this word rating exercise, they were tested on the words that they could recall. And subjects in the previous experiment and in this one that was replicated were able to recall more words that were related to survival. So that had an evolutionary basis. So subjects recalled more words when faced with a scenario also that involved raising children, but not in a scenario that was involved in mating or seeking out a mate. Both activities are related to evolutionary success. However, the researchers think that the mating scenario failed or didn't have the same level of word recall as the child-related scenario, because the prehistoric ancestors that we had maybe didn't realize that after 9 months, that thing that they did was the thing that led to the child.
Wow.
Maybe they didn't understand in prehistory that mating could result in children because of the 9-month delay. But I don't know. That's an evolutionary explanation that could use some work. The researchers, though, they're trying to figure out, it's unclear what the ancient grassland survival scenario and the child rearing scenarios, why they caused more effective memory recall. And the researchers argue that they think it has to do with the fact that those scenarios were more important to evolutionary success. So they're going to try some new studies. They're going to determine the memory difference between a biological child and an adopted one, as well as raising a pet dog. And they're expecting that the biological child scenario is going to have the highest amount of word recall, and the pet scenario is going to lead to the lowest recall. So potentially maybe we'll hear more about this study as they proceed with it. I think it's fascinating that it's our brains are so interesting in this, that language or just words, because of the way our brains work in a metaphorical way. When you read a word, it forces you, that's maybe a word that's an object, it forces you to come up with the concept. Your brain basically imagines that object. And so there's a lot of stuff going on in your head. And so if you're looking at, for say, a scenario of surviving an attack on the Serengeti, the ancient plains, that you're probably going to imagine yourself holding a rock or a stick to fight off this attacking predatory animal. And so those words, you're not going to potentially imagine yourself eating an apple while, what words are going to stick in the metaphorical image that your brain is creating as you're thinking through the scenario. Yeah. I like the way. And so this mnemonic advantage, it has a term in psychology. You can use it in your next conversation. It's the survival processing effect. That's right.
So
certain words.
I guess this is
survival.
I guess this is related but it is a weird thing. I remembered this scene of hunting mastodons or mammoths or mastodons. I'm not sure. And it was to the point where I couldn't remember where this memory of this scene had taken place. Like I couldn't think of a movie that it was in or anything, to the point where I thought maybe I just dreamed it. Maybe it was a dream I had where I was hunting mastodons. And then I was watching some random documentary, and there was the scene. Like I had seen it and I'd forgotten it, but the actual scene, like everything kind of leads up through, and then they throw this rock down, it lands on a mastodon. I totally had remembered this, and it had haunted me for a little bit, for like where this had come from, where this was. I couldn't. Anyway, that's interesting, because this is maybe one of those survival memories. Where having witnessed, or this mastodon thing had stuck in my head. Like, this is important information. You must remember. If you're ever on a high in a high peak and there's mastodons walking by and you have a rock, you can throw it down and then you will eat for days. And like somehow my mind registered that really hard.
That's right. Survival. Your brain was in survival training mode.
Speaking of survival training,
yes.
Many cancer treatments are harmful to the body at large, so delivering drugs specifically to cancer cells is something that researchers are looking at to minimize side effects. They use stem cells, bacteria, nanobots, and other carriers to deliver necessary drugs to cancer sites. Now, a new potential drug carrier to treat gynecological conditions has joined the fleet. Sperm.
Get the heck out of town.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. Like, who better than one who's specifically designed for this job? Scientists report in the journal ACS Nano that they have exploited the swimming power of sperm to ferry a cancer drug directly to a cervical tumor in lab tests. Creating an effective way to target cancer cells with drugs is challenging for many, many reasons. Drugs don't always travel deeply enough through tissues. They can get diluted in bodily fluids or get sidetracked and taken up by healthy organs. To get around these issues, scientists have turned, in some cases, to loading pharmaceuticals into bacteria, which can be effectively contained. They can put these drugs in there and the microbe hangs onto them as they propel themselves. But these can actually, and they've been successful in guiding the bacteria with magnetic fields or other mechanisms to reach specific targets. But they are bacteria, and the body's immune system has a tendency to attack them and destroy them before they reach the desired target. Looking for another self-propelled cell as an alternative drug carrier, Mariana Medina Sanchez and colleagues at the Leibniz Institute for Solid State Materials Research, Dresden, turned to sperm. The researchers packed a common cancer drug into bovine sperm cells and outfitted them with tiny magnetic harnesses. Using magnetic field, a sperm hybrid motor was guided into a lab-grown tumor of cervical cancer cells. When the harness arms pressed against the tumor, the arms opened up, releasing the sperm. The sperm then did what sperm do best and swam into the tumor, fused its membrane with that of a cancer cell, and released the drug. When unleashed by the thousands, drug-loaded sperm killed more than 80% of a cancerous ball while leaking very little of their payload en route. Further work is needed to ensure the system could work in animals and eventually humans, but researchers say the sperm motors have the potential to one day treat cancer and other diseases in the female reproductive tract, and perhaps beyond, opening up the possibility for an entire new line of products that Dr. Justin's not a real doctor. Wonder cure for all that ails you too, which oddly is the number 2 is the first one, not the second one that we came up with.
Right.
This is great. I mean, using the natural motor. This is, I mean, this is the sperm has been it has adapted through human evolutionary history to navigate the female reproductive tract.
It has the map.
It has the map. It knows what it's supposed to do. It's swim. Yeah.
It knows the obstacles.
Yeah.
It understands the conditions
And it's
in which
adapted.
it will be traveling.
Adapted to the environment too.
It knows that it's a one-way mission.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you took sperm from animals that have a different type of reproductive tract, like koalas and kangaroos, and you tried to use that sperm in another kind of mammal, if it would still work.
Yeah. So
That's
I don't know.
That's a great question.
That is a great question. They used bovine sperm cells because they were in a lab condition.
Well, straight shot for all those mammals. But there's koalas and kangaroos. It's a bit of a Y curly Q situation.
Yeah,
different map.
Right. So I would assume if this was a human patient that they would be using human sperm.
Do you? I'm not sure.
I don't think they would use. I think they would continue to use bovine sperm. I think that they can get large quantities. Cows are already ranched, and they are they're ranched in decent quantities for medical purposes as well.
But don't you think that
there are research animals already? I would imagine it would be bovine.
I don't think people would want to. I feel like there would be more, believe it or not, more of an ick factor taking human genetic packages and changing them. Well, I'm just saying, that's what they are, right? So they're carrying human genetic, information, and then you're changing its purpose. That I feel like that actually might have more of a stigma on it than using bovine sperm. Yes.
But if you could remove the genetic information, which is I would imagine what they would do. I mean, can you make sperm that only have a power and the motor?
Mm-hmm. Right, so that would be
the genetic information.
Is if you could make synthetic sperm.
Right.
Well, so part of it though, isn't it though, that like there's going to be biological rejection of I would think of a different species.
I think that's the whole point though, is that sperm are not as much of a red flag in an immune system as other things might be.
But I think that's, it will be a question.
Absolutely.
I'll have to defer to the ladies on the show. I actually thought that it would be the opposite, that the bovine, thousands of bovine sperm treatment would be more objectionable somehow.
Well, I would see it as it is then very clearly a medicinal treatment. It
absolutely
separates it from this other use for human sperm.
And at this point, this is a very early study. They're doing lab-grown tumors. This is cervical cells in a dish. This is not, this isn't actually in a human body at this point in time. But what we're looking at is the mechanism. This is a molecular motor that has adapted to swim in this environment and to deliver a payload. And so if they can, from this point on, scientifically adapt the messenger, the sperm itself, can they scientifically adapt either bovine sperm to not be targeted by the immune system or human sperm to not contain a genetic payload at all, and only be the motor component? Or is there a synthetic molecular machine that they can create that would do this same function?
Or another choice, possibly,
all
could you choose your donor?
Right.
Again, would that make a difference? Would that make a difference? Then people are like, okay, I know where this is coming from. I'm comfortable with this genetic material being used. And again, like, unlike a blood bank where they're going for that blood pack because you've lost yours and you could die, this one you may have more time.
Yeah. Oh, you guys, has it been nice and sunny in California recently?
Mostly, yeah. It's been
and cold. It's been cold and sunny.
Cold. Oh, the cold. Up here it's been rainy and cold. And the other day I was just talking about, like, my back was aching and I'm like, oh, my joints are aching. And I was commenting, I was like, oh, it's this rainy weather. The rainy weather is making me achy. Well, you know what? I can't use that as an excuse anymore. And neither can any of you. Researchers publishing in the British medical journal BMJ from Harvard Medical School, in fact, used a big data approach to actually look into this common, old saying of, it's the rainy weather brings out the aches and the pains. And they say, nope, no. They linked insurance claims from millions of doctors' visits with daily rainfall totals from thousands of National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration weather stations. So they're basically using insurance claims as proxies for visits to the doctors. And the researchers say no matter how we looked at the data, we didn't see any correlation between rainfall and physician visits for joint pain or back pain. The bottom line is painful joints and sore backs may very well be unreliable forecasters.
Question, though.
Yes.
There are other variables here we're not looking at. Like, do people not go to the doctor because it's raining out and they don't want to slip and fall?
Or maybe it's not really the kind of thing that you go to the doctor for because it's just kind of achy and you just take a couple of ibuprofen or some acetaminophen or something and call it a day.
Especially if you think it's because of the rain, you might go, if it still hurts in a couple days, I'll go see the doctor.
Right.
Do they get like a spike on sunny days? I have an ache in my ankle, but I don't know what it is because it's not raining.
Yeah.
So I must rush to the doctor to find out where this mystery pain in my left big toe is coming from.
I would like to see instead them taking people with habitual hip or knee or ankle pain, putting them in a room and changing the barometric pressure.
There you go.
There you go.
And then seeing if they start to feel pain.
Yes,
because
that would be a more experimental approach as opposed to this kind of data-based statistical observational approach.
Yeah. Where did this study come from?
The British Medical Journal, BMJ, out of Harvard Medical School. And
you're slipping, Harvard. You're slipping.
That's right. So the researchers looked at a variety of questions. Did more patients seek care for back pain or joint pain when it rained or following periods of raining weather?
Mhm.
Were patients who went to the doctor for other reasons more likely to also report aching knees or backs around rainy days? What if there were several rainy days in a row? And they pretty much found that there was a complete absence of a rain effect in the overall group. They also asked, did patients with a prior diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis report more pain? And no, they did not. And the researchers do say it's hard to prove a negative. But in this
Yeah.
flood of data, if there was a clinically significant increase in pain, we would have expected to find at least some small but significant sign of the effect, and we didn't.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, man.
I don't know. Yes, and I think you guys are right. There are many more factors. That's exactly what I was thinking as I read this. But oh my goodness, big data. They're using big data.
Big data.
Computers to crunch lots and lots of numbers from giant insurance company data sets and weather stations from NOAA. And this is all to determine whether or not people get achy when it rains,
Mm-hmm.
which I find interesting. Any more stories, you guys?
Oh, I have a quick one.
Yes, quick.
This week in stating the obvious, when people know more about things, they fear them less. In particular, scary animals like sharks. A study on 500 visitors in an aquarium in Sydney, Australia, found that in a pre and post survey, they were less afraid of sharks when they knew more about how sharks move, why they move the way they do, how they hunt, why they hunt the way they do. And they were also less likely to blame sharks for incidents where a swimmer or surfer was bitten once they better understood shark behavior. So this is mostly apropos in Sydney because of the shark culling going on over there and the referendum on sharks anywhere near public beaches. But ultimately, it's proving the reason that we're here right now is that the more people know about the natural world, the less they'll fear it and the more they'll want to preserve it. So there we go.
Yeah, have no fear. Nature is here.
Yeah, and just to clarify, because you didn't tell the key point, I think there too, of that story, which is that if you're not in the ocean, you're in absolutely no danger. And there's no reason to be afraid in the first place of your proximity to sharks.
This is a very good point.
Everywhere else. So if you do have, if one of these, you've got a phobia, an unnatural fear of sharks, stay out the ocean. That's the easiest way.
I mean,
That's
you
the
do have to
easiest way
worry
to do it.
about land shark. Sorry, old SNL skit.
Yes, I remember Land Shark from
Land
Weekend
Shark.
Update.
That was so
Yeah. So anyway, it was a nice feel-good moment considering what I do for a living, both here and in my day job, and it shows that it actually does do something.
education
So,
helps.
and listeners, you can help. Tell somebody they're more likely to get struck by lightning or die from being crushed by a vending machine than they are to be bitten by a shark. It may surprise them, and they may think twice before they support a shark cult.
And about buying that bag of corn chips.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thus began the North American vending machine culling.
That wouldn't be that bad. Bringing it back around to the poop pills and the microbiome might actually help us out a little bit.
But that's
I
why I
don't
was
know.
selling them. Oh,
I'm just gonna wait for the Science Channel to come out with vending machine week.
Yes. Well, that's like cow week,
Cow
right?
week,
That they have
yes.
during Shark Week. Over 200 people a year die from cows, and
Yep.
less than 10 from sharks.
Yep.
So
so we need a cow culling.
We do
a
that.
barbecue to go
yeah,
with
we
Speaking of
already do
barbecue,
that.
We do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Mhm.
everything.
All right. If you guys were paying attention to Twitter and social media at the end of last week, You might have heard about a Washington Post article that reported that officials at the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, were told that by senior agency officials that they were prohibited from using a list of 7 words or phrases in budget documents. Those words, became the 7 dirty words of the CDC: fetus, transgender, vulnerable, entitlement, diversity, evidence-based, and science-based. This sparked a social media outcry from all of sciencedom and everyone else. People claiming that it was an Orwellian movement on the part of the administration to limit free speech, and also very many arguments about this. But it turns out that that limiting speech was not necessarily the intent. The director of the CDC tweeted on Sunday, "I want to assure you there are no banned words at CDC. We will continue to talk about all our important public health programs." And a bunch of people wanted more explanation. So a spokesperson for the Health and Human Services Department, which is above the CDC, says the assertion that HSS has banned words is a mischaracterization of the discussions regarding the formulation process. HSS will continue to use the best scientific evidence available to improve the health of all Americans. Now, the officials are coming out and saying that the so-called ban, as it reported, is not a ban, but more a suggestion that individuals and members of the CDC applying for budgetary support in the that might go under conservative review processes, that it might behoove them to use different phrases if they want their research to get potentially get fully funded. So it is a bit double speaky and a bit Orwellian, but not in the
Okay.
way we think. It's more to fly so that the science can fly under the radar and still get money.
Oh boy.
So by applying baby magic
Yeah.
to the crazy idea that I have, that
That's
is
right.
based on previous baby magic, I think we have a way forward in a deserving manner for job creation within. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
No, it is Orwellian, but that's, I mean, like, either way, that's ridiculous.
yeah. Either way, it is ridiculous. Just the fact that these conversations are being had, that there are being alternative phrases handed out to people to use for their documentation, that it's just a statement on the state of things as they are currently, and how people are starting to think about things to try and maintain funding for certain things. Yeah. So one of the alternatives, instead of using the phrase science-based, officials could say CDC bases its recommendations on science in consideration with community standards and wishes.
Wishes?
Oh,
Wishes?
barf.
No, 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 no,
Right?
Oh man.
no, no.
Come
Mm.
on.
Don't like, if really, if there's a political will out there to make science, the word science, dirty, bring it on.
Yeah.
We'll have that argument out in public. We're not gonna dance around it.
Yeah. So anyway, the bottom line of all this is that there are no banned words at the CDC. There has been no suppression of free speech at this point in time. There are people having political conversations related to
Yeah.
budget and
Boy.
and funding. So that's where it stands at this point in time. So the outcry and the outrage, we can reserve that for next time. Oh, everyone, I think we have come to the end of another wonderful episode of This Week in Science. So much fun tonight.
Yeah.
It's a good one to close out the year on our science news.
That's right. This is our last science newsy story or show for 2017. Next week is our top 11 science stories for 2017. We will be counting them down from 11 all the way down to 1. We'll tell you what we think were
Why is
our
it 11?
favorites.
Why is it 11?
Why is it
When everybody else
11?
has a top 10,
Yeah.
it's one better.
It's one better. It's also, you always want to know what didn't make the top 10 list, right?
Yeah.
What was the one that
what was the one?
almost made it but didn't quite? That one also we'll tell you.
Yeah.
Next
Yeah,
week.
so we will be talking all the science of 2017, the best science of 2017. We'll be running it down next week, and we hope you will be joining us. If you have ideas, thoughts on the top stories for 2017, tweet us. I think we have a hashtag that, of course, I'm forgetting off the top of my head.
Oh!
Yeah, I know we have a. We do. We have a hashtag. Somebody already sent one in today.
Wait, see, now every time you say hashtag, the thing that you say right after becomes the hashtag. So now you have hashtag, somebody already sent it in. And I have hashtag my entire explanation that everything you say after hashtag is the thing that people should be.
Yes. So it's top 11 TWIS science. TWIS science. Top 11 TWI science. If you can use that hashtag, top 11 TWI.
Why couldn't we keep two
science.
S's? I still don't understand why we get rid of one of the S's.
Top 11 this week in science.
Yeah,
It's not.
otherwise it would be This Week in Science.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
No,
Yeah.
you're right.
Thank you, Blair Baz, for putting that in the chat room. Top 11 TWIS science. Tweet us. Let us know what you think should be on the top stories list, and we will see what we think. We will measure your input compared to our own, But we're looking forward to that. Now is our time to say thank you to everyone. Thank you as we come into TWISmas for being a part of everything TWISy this year. Blair, Justin, thank you for being amazing hosts with me on This Week in Science. I love doing the show with you both week after week. I love coming here, seeing the chat room, seeing all the names of everyone in the chat room and the new names when new people show up. I notice you. I see you in the chat room over at web chat. I see you in YouTube. I see you on Facebook. I do. I peek. I might not be talking to you all the time, but I see you. I do. Fata, thank you so much for your help on social media. Identity 4, thank you for recording the show and making sure that I have a copy of it to publish to our podcast feed week after week. Thank you so much for that. And Brandon, thank you for helping to simulcast TWIS to Facebook. Without all of you, this would really not be the endeavor that it is. All of you make this possible. And also those of you on Patreon, thank you for your support. I'm going to click all the buttons. Thank you to a Honey Moss, Aaron Luthen, Adam Mishkan, Alec Doty, Alex Wilson, Andy Groh, Arlene Moss, Artyom, Ben Rothick, Bill Kersey, Bob Calder, Braxton Howard, Brendan Minish, Brian Hedrick, Brian Condren, Brian Hone, Bruce Cordell, Byron Lee, Charlene Henry, Christopher Dreyer, Christopher Rappin, Colombo Ahmed, Greg Porter, Dale Bryant, Dana Pearson, Daniel Garcia, Darwin Hannon, Daryl, Dave Neighbor, Dave Wilkinson, David Friedel, David Simmerly, David Wiley, Donald Trump, The Dubious, Dougal Campbell, EO, Edward Dyer, Emma Grenier, Eric Knapp, Eric Wolf, Felix Alvarez, Flying Out, Gary S., Gerald Sorrells, G. Burton Lattimore, Gerald Ornyango, Greg Guthman, Greg Riley, Haroon Sarang, Hexator, Howard Tan, Aluma Lama, Jacqueline Boyster, Jake Jones, James Dobson, James Randall, James Jason Dozier, Jason Olds, Jason Roberts, Jason Schneiderman, Gene Tellier, Jim Drapeau, Joe Wheeler, John Atwood, John Crocker, John Gridley, John Ratnaswamy, Keith Corsell, Ken Hades, Kevin Parachan, Kevin Railsback, Ksenia Belkova, Kurt Larson, Larry Garcia, Layla, Louis Smith, Mark Marzaros, Marjorie, Mark, Marshall Clark, Matt Sutter, Matthew Litwin, Mitch Neves, More Cowbell, Mountain Sloth, Nathan Greco, Orly Radio, Patrick Cohn, Paul Stanton, Paul Disney, Phil Nadeau, Philip Shane, Randy Mizuko, Richard Hendricks, Richard Onimus, Richard Porter, Rick Ramus, Robert Aston, Rodney, Rudy Garcia, Salgood, Sam Shiwata, Sir Frankadelic, Stefan Insom, Steve DeBell, Steve Lessman, Steve Mashinsky, the Harden family, Todd Northcutt, Tony Steele, Tyler Harrison, Tyrone Fong, Trainer 84, and Ulysses Adkins. Thank you, everyone, for all your support on Patreon this year. You have helped us get through another year of This Week in Science. And I would really especially like to honor Larry Garcia, who we discovered this last week is no longer with us. He has passed this mortal coil, but has been a long-time friend and supporter of This Week in Science, and we will miss him as part of our community. For everyone else, thank you for continuing to be here, and know that we will be here again next week on This Week in Science at twist.org/live. You can watch and join our chat room. Don't worry if you can't make it. We'll be here. You can find past episodes at twist.org/live, at facebook.com/thisweekinscience, also just at twist.org, where you will find all sorts of links for things like Zazzle and Patreon and PayPal donations.
Thank you for enjoying the show. TWIS is also available as a podcast. Just Google This Week in Science in your iTunes directory. Or if you have a mobile type device, you can look for TWIS, the number 4 Droid app in the Android marketplace, or simply This Week in Science in anything Apple marketplacey.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes will be available on our website. That's at www.twist.org, where you can also make comments and start conversations with the hosts and other listeners.
Or you can contact us directly. Email Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twistminion@gmail.com, or Blair at blairbaz@twist.org. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, somewhere in the subject line so that your email does not get spam filtered into oblivion. You can also hit us up on the Twitter, where we are at TWIS Science, at Dr. Kiki, at Jacksonfly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes to you in the night, please let us know.
We will be back here next week for our top 11 of 2017. And we hope you'll join us again for more great science news.
And if you've learned anything from the show, remember,
It's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer and it shouldn't be news. That what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just better understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy. We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. And This Week in Science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say, and if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got a laundry list of items I want to address. From stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought, and I'll try to answer any question you've got. But how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This Week in Science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say, and if you've learned anything from the words that we've said, then please just remember it's all in your head. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.
Purple and yellow. That's purple and yellow, Blair. Purple and yellow salamander.
Yes.
With some lovely leaves of various earth tones, jewel tone here and there.
But what color is this mantis shrimp?
Mantis shrimp, I mean, this is through monitors. It looks pink, could be orange.
Looks pretty pinkish orange. I'm with
Yeah.
you there.
Pinkish orange. There's like a red, it's blue. That's blue. Those are blues. And then there's like a purples in there. Yeah,
Mhm.
purple, lavender, some blue.
See who else sent me some pictures.
I like the pictures.
There's one.
Red. I love the orange tardigrade.
Orange tardigrade.
I love that. I think that's really well done.
Yeah, that one was super good.
Yeah.
I love seeing these.
I
So
know, isn't
everyone,
it great?
order calendars and start coloring. And tweet at me.
Mm-hmm.
Tweet at me. Yo.
Tweet the pictures. Hey, everyone. Thank you for the mood boost. Everyone in the chat room, thank you for the mood boost. Yeah, Bleak says, I was cranky until I got scienced.
Mhm.
You know, I was too. I've been cranky all day. I don't know why.
It's the barometric pressure.
Maybe that's what it is. It's the barometric pressure beating me down. It's
Yeah.
probably also the fact that I was cold most of the day and I was tired because, of course, my son has a cold and so he keeps me awake with his thrashing around.
His thrashing.
He thrashes.
Don't, He shouldn't be a thrasher.
Yeah. So my son has a cold. Maybe I'm fighting his cold. I don't know. Fighting his cold. So I'm a little just kind of low energy, but I come and do the show and talk with you guys and talk about this stuff and it just lifts me right up. And then when we're done, I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah, I'm really excited for bed too. Oh, here's the is this black and yellow? Green? Is it black or is it green?
It's like a dark forest green and lime
Little
green
spots of yellow.
or yellow. Yeah, yellow. I would say yellow or lime green, depending upon.
I think if you saw that color without the green around it, would just look yellow.
Yeah, maybe.
Just looks like, I don't know. Looks like a whole
Blair.
big ball of, I don't know. Where's
When
my
are you gonna get your glasses that allow you to see the world in color?
when I have a spare $450.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nothing.
Well, it was just my birthday, Justin.
Well, you know, the thing is, Blair, I guess it doesn't seem worth it if you haven't seen colors and aren't even curious as to what they might look like. I can see why that would be a lot of money.
Glasses. I really want them. But it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That is like,
it's almost twice the value of the car you're driving.
All right. That's the whole point. As I have
no, I get it. Yeah, I'm sorry.
15-year-old.
I'm right there. I'm right there with you. So
if I'm driving a 15-year-old car with one headlight, don't tell any of the cops nearby.
They can tell if you drive at night. You know, it's not going to be a secret.
I know. Yeah, there's an electrical problem. I have to get my car fixed. But
oh dear.
Yeah. I changed the headlight. And it still didn't work. And then I looked at the old headlight, and it was fine. Like, oh no. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
They don't have contact lenses. They're sunglasses is the thing.
Yeah, they're sunglasses.
So contacts would probably look pretty weird. Just black eyes, completely black.
That'd be awesome.
Yikes.
And as Blair yawns.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, too much yawn.
Why are you yawning?
Why am I yawning?
Why are you yawning? What's going on? Why are you yawning?
Are you kidding me? She took a break from yawning just barely long enough to do the show. She yawns right before the show starts, and as soon as it's over, starts yawning again.
You know, I'd be mad, but you're pretty accurate.
No, I'm not making fun of you, Blair. That does seem to be the pattern.
Yep.
As soon as the excitement of being in the midst of a show that is live and happening now, it's back to our normal, boring lives.
Kiki, is that pile of calendar shrinking still?
It is slowly but surely. It is shrinking. It is good. But we do still have some calendars that need to go. I mean, I don't want to have to color them all.
Yeah.
And Blair can't. So we need your help.
No, I'm
please
one.
support Blair's artwork.
I can't say that it'll be accurate.
So you guys, I have a question. Last week, maybe people in the chat room know the answer to this. Was it last week? No, 2 weeks ago when Blair was gone and Kai was hanging out during the show, I mentioned that Kai was going to be sleeping on the couch in here. And I don't know, somebody on Facebook, like they shared our science stream with their friend, and then a bunch of people popped in, and everybody got really excited about the couch being here. And I'm at a loss as to what the excitement over the couch was and why people, and everybody seemed to only want to be watching the show to find out more about the couch.
What the heck are you? What?
The comments are hilarious. I'm like, what? The couch? Why the couch? And I'm wondering if there's like some kind of pop culture couch meme that I don't know about or something. Okay, good. Good.
Just a quick Google here for couch meme.
Right.
I think
What am I missing?
could it have been the interest in the Kiki studio comes complete with a viewing couch. You can have a live audience.
You could have a couch. That's right. I could. You could sit on the couch and only hear me talk.
Right. But those are limited tickets. Those are only a few people that can
Very
fit on that
limited.
couch. Whereas in my studio, I have the bleachers set up. You go back 8 rows, so there's enough. There's enough. If you can't get into the Kiki show, the Justin show has plenty of seating.
There's plenty of seating.
We used to provide beverages, but it got a little rowdy. The crowd got a little out of it, which you're still allowed to bring with you, but we don't provide precarious amounts of alcohol to our live audience anymore.
No, I ask them to bring alcohol to give to me.
Yeah, that's what I hadn't figured out yet. I was running up quite a bill, actually.
That's right. You're like, if you're going to come here, price of entry, ticket, and a bottle of booze. Come on. No. Pay up.
It looks like this can't be right. There is a couch meme, but it's very adult.
Okay.
So,
what day was that?
Gross.
What are you looking up, Blair? Blair, get off the internet. Stop Googling things.
There's this thing.
Stop Googling things on the internet.
Justin.
Oh my God, that's funny.
You know this. You almost have teenagers, okay? So when you're talking to teenagers, they will like snicker behind your back or even in front of your face about a meme you don't know. This is a new thing, right? And so this is something that happens with my teen volunteers all the time, is they'll like make some reference and I'll recognize that it's probably a meme I'm not familiar with, which is why I go to a certain website called Know Your Meme.
This is a website for old people.
And keeping up with the kids.
Yeah, and you can look up what it's about. And that's where I am right now.
Okay.
So.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh no. Now you're getting meme references in our chat room for people wanting you to Google things. It's going downhill quickly. Okay. So I normally am all for extended after hours times, and I apologize to the minions for tonight. I'm gonna check out early.
You're gonna check out early?
Yeah, I got a
Seriously,
big day
guys,
both behind and ahead of me.
I'm lots of work to do.
Yeah.
I just put a link in the chat room to the episode with all the couch comments, which crack me up.
Are they nefarious? Like, what are the comments?
No, it's hilarious. It's like, is the couch fire fam? Is the couch dryer? Is the couch leather? Is this that couch sale fam? I am in need of couch. Is the couch in nature? The couch auction starting soon? Ma'am, how different is the couch?
Yeah,
is the couch in California? Will the couch change my bread basket?
Oh, what the heck?
They wanted a couch auction. I don't know. And they're all sorts of, it's really funny.
So
you know, and based
kind
on
of gross couch
Kiki.
meme situation I'm reading about is about a black leather couch.
Okay, now Kiki, based on what Blair pre-informed you before you started reading out couch comments, you do realize we could be having the most raunchy conversation right now.
Oh yeah, we wouldn't know it. And I know, but maybe there are young people enjoying it and snickering at us behind their hands.
Well, yeah, but that's because they're a bunch of armoires.
Yep. Sure.
All right, you have a big day, Justin. Do we
Okay.
have anything that we need to discuss before you go for the top 11 show next week?
No, I did discover there's a thing in the rundown to start putting ideas in there, and I need to
Yeah, I did
start
that.
doing that.
I did that. And then, yeah, probably Tuesday. I'm just
Ish.
trying between the family stuff and the holiday things and what day I'll be able to sit down and start piecing it all together. But yeah. Oh, Identity 4. Sorry, the audio sounds stutter borky. It's okay. It's okay. I'm gonna just
Stutter Borky.
no, I like stutter borky. Good
Merry
night.
Christmas, Potter.
Oh,
Merry Christmas, Minions. I gotta go.
Okay, Justin. Merry Twistmas. Have a good one if I do not speak to you before. And Blair, are you heading out right now?
I can or I can say whatever you prefer.
I don't know that I have much to talk about
Okay, we can go.
or to say
can
other
go. I'm
than
Do a quick Scrooge McDuck into my bed.
That's right. Dive right in as if it were a giant pile of money.
Yeah.
That's right.
They're all just Z's.
Everyone out there, yeah, I'm excited. It is that holiday season right now. I do love the holidays. I know they are a hard time for some people, but I hope that you are having a wonderful holiday season. I hope that no matter what, we can be a part of your holiday season. I hope that you'll be with us next week for the top 11 rundown show for 2017. And thank you for being here today. Thanks so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are all so lucky to have this right here and now.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. Merry Twistmas.
Happy
One and
winter solstice.
all. And happy solstice. That's right. Next week. I mean, not next week, tomorrow. My brain's not even working anymore. It's probably a good idea if I get off the internet. Happy solstice.
Something bad, like talk about couches a bunch.
I know. Solstice is my favorite day of the year. Want to know why?
Because it's the shortest.
It means that it's all getting better from here.
Oh. Oh my gosh.
The daylight is on an upward swing. We're going to get back to my time of year, which is summer.
Nice.
Summertime. That's right. Let's go. Let's get it. Tomorrow, shortest day of the year. Just means it's all gonna get better. So everyone, I hope that you are looking forward to celebrating just like I am this Twistmas season. We'll see you next Wednesday. Good night, Blair. Good night, everyone.
Kiki. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Merry Twistmas.